Now you can call to order.
Okay. This is Mike Schaefer, the chairman of the planning board. Present are Deborah Smith and Janice Vega Lyons, and I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:15.
And all participants are just being notified that this meeting is being recorded. All questions and comments become part of the permanent record. Questions are taken at the discretion of the board chair. Attendees can participate by submitting questions in the question box or raising their hand. And at the discretion of the chair, folks will be called on. Thank you.
We're starting the meeting a little later than we expected. So at 7:15, we had a public hearing on some zoning amendment changes proposed by the select board. And I'd like to open that meeting at 7:15.
What? There it is.
Brian, did you want to walk people through? Do we have many people in the audience today?
So you have a few folks who are on for your A&R discussions, and then you do it appears that you have at least 3 members of the public who have joined you. You also do have a question from Morningstar, just asking whether or not visitors will be allowed to participate beyond just audio.
They can, I guess we'd like to save the questions to the end, or they can, can you see if they raise their hand, Brian, if they have questions? Can they?
That's correct. Yep. And I can let you know if they raise their hand.
Okay. So, Brian, did you want to go through this, or?
Of course. So hopefully everybody.
Was there a question?
One. Thanks, honey.
So on the screen, if folks are participating using the app or if they're using a web browser, they should be able to see the PDF that I'm sharing. It's a memorandum from the select board to the planning board, and it's requesting a few changes. It's requesting the change of the use of the word family to unit in the use table. We're just trying to update that terminology so that the zoning law is not trying to look at the composition of one's family, and instead focusing on the dwelling units. In response to what the select board understands to be a recommendation from the planning board, was the idea that 2 unit dwellings would be allowed by right in all zones. And so there's a recommendation to change the use table to allow 2 units in Central Village and in Village Residential by right, whereas right now it's by special permit. And then the other change in the use table would be in regards to multi-unit dwellings, formerly multifamily dwellings, and that would be to allow special permit in all zones. So those are the only recommended changes to the use table. The only other change that the select board was recommending was a change to the definition of multi-unit dwelling. Again, to make that change from family to unit, and then to delete the section that says, but no more than 4 dwellings, and then specifically designed for the occupancy by no more than 4 dwellings. Remove those words, so it just now reads a dwelling containing 3 or more units separated by vertical walls or horizontal floors. And that
Thank you, Brian.
Recommendations, yes.
Are there some questions?
I don't see any hands up yet.
No, that's self-explanatory.
I have a question. Hi, folks. Mark Burnett. I'm here for a different part of the meeting, but just curious as to why the change was to remove it looked like there was a cap at 4 units, why that was taken away.
So right now, there's been an ongoing conversation, both in Irving as well as the county sort of following suit with the state about addressing the housing need within the Commonwealth. Most recently, the select board has been working on redevelopment options for properties like the IP mill or the former graded school building. And there seems to be a strong interest in housing options. Under our current zoning, you would not be able to permit a project with more than 4 units. And so they would like to present to the voters the opportunity to adjust that. Like I said, there's an interest in housing for Irving, and specifically a conversation around affordable housing. We are far below what the state is requiring of every community to maintain approximately 10% affordable housing. And there's a concern that if Irving is not proactively taking steps to control and prepare for that type of development, that a developer may seek to move outside of our zoning and seek relief from the state so that they could conduct a project. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, thank you,
Mark,
Brian. That was helpful. When you say the state requires, like, can you clarify a little more? And this is totally just interested. I had no no agenda. Yeah. So when you say, yeah, the state requires that the town prepare for this, that's interesting to me. Could you talk a little more about that?
I'm just gonna try to turn on my camera for you all so I feel a little bit better than being a voice without a picture. Hold on one moment. Probably doesn't help that I also look like I'm Mariah Kurtz.
Yeah, you don't look much like her, though, I don't think. All I see is the wall right now.
See if I can turn that around. Anyhow, while I'm trying to make that work, so the state has a requirement that there is an effort to maintain at least 10% affordable housing, and the affordable housing is a determination based on the average monthly income of your region. So it would be based on the average monthly incomes of Franklin County. So it is county specific. Irving had some properties still far below the 10%, but we had some properties that had either deed restriction, affordability built into their sales at the time of purchase, but many of those have already lapsed in time. I think most of them were 15-year restrictions. So at this point, we are far below 1%. The concern about 10% is that if a community has fallen below that and does not have a housing production plan in place and doesn't have some type of effort or plan that's been publicly supported to address that potential, developer has the opportunity to seek relief from a zoning bylaw by appealing to the state. They call it the 40B process. If the state grants that relief, it does remove some of the restrictions that local zoning may have put into place. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a project that's completely out of character with your community. It would still have to go through state approval. But some of the things that maybe a community has thoughtfully put into place may be part of the relief that is granted to a developer. So the encouragement from myself to the select board and then from the select board to the planning board is that we create some local control options using the special permit process so that if a project does come forward, the planning board can respond to those and put local control in place. The next step of this would also, beyond the RFP process that the select board's trying to do for IP mill and maybe the graded school, I believe the second step to all of this would be for the town to formally create a housing production plan so that if the town's ever challenged and the state is ever asked to consider relief, we could respond to the state that we have made these updates in these plans and that we are being proactive.
Thanks, Ryan.
I guess, Brian,
Of course.
Mark, I had kind of the same question, like, should we set some kind of limit on how many units can go in to certain zones? 4 wasn't very many. 50 is probably kind of what we'd be looking at the IP mill, or I would think, or that would be a pretty good sized number, wouldn't it, Brian? 50?
That
units?
would be probably the higher end, correct?
Yeah. Then
So
I don't,
when we were
rural
working,
residential, I don't think we want big units and a lot of units in rural residential. Deb, I don't know what your feeling is. I just started thinking about this a week or so ago. And
I definitely don't think, like in my neighborhood, I wouldn't want to see 50 units go up, but I know we've been talking about things like senior housing, redevelopment at the IP site, the graded school. And so, hearing like some of the plans, the 2 plans that came forward for the IP site were definitely more than 4-unit buildings.
right,
So I think it's important that the town retains control and that we're able to have that. I mean, right now, if they came in through 40B, they could throw everything out the window and kind of do whatever they want. I mean, within reason, of course, but we wouldn't have recourse. So I think having something where the town has the recourse through the special permit process is an important step.
Hey, folks, I figured since I'm a panelist for later, I can jump in here. Sorry, it is your meeting, but yeah, it's interesting, this whole situation. Of course, the two, and first off, thank you, Brian, super detailed, appreciate that. But secondarily, a developer certainly couldn't come in and take, is the IP mill, is that town-owned property? Did the town take that? Okay.
yeah,
Right now, the 2 properties we're talking about are town-owned
Mhm.
properties that a developer could not access anyway unless the town sold those properties. Am I correct?
correct.
Yeah, okay. Thanks,
Correct.
just clarification.
The town doesn't want to gone.
No,
They want them into private, yeah.
any other questions from anybody about this?
Let me see. Moonlight has joined us and has a question. Would you like me to Moonlight?
Yeah,
Hey, Moonlight.
can't stay away. Like,
Good evening, everyone. Hey, Deb. Hey, Mark, Mike, and hey, how y'all
good to
doing?
hear your voice.
My question is, one of the places where they're considering doing this multi-family unit is down here behind Renovated Supplies. Is that a potential site?
No.
No. So there's a lot of talk about renovator supply because of the PUD. So I think the easiest way to clear that up is say that is a privately owned site and it has no plans that we know of whatsoever.
But this would open it up for them to put in a multi-unit.
I would just to clarify for all of you, you currently allow special permit multifamily in CV.
Well, four families, not 50 units, like what
You have
they would have probably in that
You have a
back.
capped-
Well, the idea is that trying to have a committee to sort of look at this thing like, Irving wide would probably be a better idea than just opening it up, because there may be some places where we miss something, I think, if we do it too quickly. Because, someone like the paper, like Renovated Supplies could, in fact, do what he wants if it's open to him.
If you're talking about the potential for housing, I understand the concern, but I would just, and I don't bring this up to create any type of fear, but if it was a project that was being proposed regarding affordable housing, regardless of what our zoning says, because we are so far below what they would ask us to work towards, they could seek relief from the state regardless. But I agree with you. We shouldn't be doing anything in haste. I do agree with you there.
So my next question, and I'll back out of the way, is, if we're if we're going to do this, and if we're below what we need to be to qualify, then are we really being motivated put housing anywhere just to be within the state guidelines? Are we just doing it so that we can make it, or are we actually responsibly looking at how we can do it and how we can do it wisely for everybody?
That's a very important question, and I would add to your previous comment that I am all for town-wide conversation on this. And so this is important to have public hearings just like this one today. This is important to bring to town meeting and discuss the benefits and concerns with the voters. If this requires further study, all of those things should happen. With the idea that it would go anywhere just to meet that goal, well, no, you all as a community have, if I'm being honest, made very specific decisions over the last few decades to limit the amount of growth that can happen here. So I think you as a community have been very clear that you're concerned about this over time. So nobody is trying to change that, change into a 180-degree direction, that position of the town. So I think from all of this, you want to maintain local control, and you want to make sure that you have the ability to put the right restrictions in as the community sees as necessary. Flat out saying no in every zone is not going to get us to that goal. Allowing special permit in certain areas versus all areas is a decision of the voters and the planning board. Our understanding was that the planning board, and I say, wow, meaning representing the select board,
Waiting for, I had 210,
Me too.
and then I finally decided to get it.
just in terms of the multi-unit, it was my understanding and the select board's understanding that the planning board had been considering special permit in the other zones. I don't think the planning board was discussing an update to the definition. I believe that was a recommendation from the select board. So if the special permit in all zones that the planning board was considering mixed with the select board's recommendation to revisit the definition creates further concern, then I think that's likely where this conversation then needs to focus.
Yeah, that's my issue, Brian. When we voted on it, it was a 4-unit, max. Now there's no max on it.
Okay.
There is some agenda. There is some things that need to, no matter where you put 50 or 60 units, you're going to need police protection. You're going to need, it's going to make a busy area. And that's really going to be something that I guess the city is going to have to, the town is going to have to think about. Because no matter where you put 50 or 60 units, that's going to create a little bit of a traffic and a congested area.
That's all part of the special permit, though. I mean, the safety and all that's taken into consideration. So it's a lot of work for whoever's going to be on the planning board at a special permit to go through one of these. It's not going to be easy. That's kind of why I'd like to see a little more detail in what's allowed and not allowed, as far as numbers go, and maybe size of the units too. Are they,
Well, Sorry.
Yeah, that's my only concerns, Brian.
The only other thing I would add, building on the points that Moonlight and Mike, what you're making, and in regards to the conversation that Mark had a few minutes ago, most of the conversation, other than the topic of renovators coming up, has been around the IP mill. And I know that that's gotten a lot of news lately from the Recorder and other news outlets because the select board's actively working on that property. But to Mark's point, that it is a property that is under the control of the select board to sell, and they're conducting an RFP process. And so the process is done publicly, it's done at public meetings. The RFP is designed to attract the most advantageous reuse. The select board's looking at a mixed reuse of the property. That's their preference. So yes, in our most recent initial phase of the process, which was not to sell it yet, it was to garner more information about what would be the concerns or the interests of a potential developer. The responses that we received at that time were predominantly housing. So this idea of 50 units came from that conversation. We have no actual clue when we put out the formal RFP at the end of January, with the plan to have it due in March, exactly who is going to respond. It could be a predominantly commercial use. It could be a fully industrial use. It may be a residential use. We don't know. And until we see the quality of the proposals, we also won't know who ranks the most advantageous. But with that, all of the proposals will have to discuss exactly what Moonlight was concerned about. It's going to have to discuss the traffic patterns, the accommodations for multimodal transit, so your buses, your bikes, your pedestrian traffic. It's got to think about if it's going to be mixed use, how do you attend to the needs of the residential uses while you're attending to the commercial uses. So all of that goes into a very detailed document. It's a binder really, that shows up as in the format of their presentation. So all of that's reviewed publicly. I wouldn't be as concerned about something sneaking in to that particular property, because the citizens have every right to be part of all of those steps. If the concern is about potentially a private transaction happening somewhere else in town, it could very well be a legitimate concern, and I definitely understand and appreciate that. But to Deb's point, I am not aware of any other private project that has been floated.
Any other questions? Mark, I see you're back.
I know. I was just trying not to be on here because I'm not part of your board, but yeah, a couple clarifying question and maybe a follow-up question. And I should know this, my apologies. These potential zoning changes, same ones that were discussed at the last public hearing, I assume this is going to be voted on at annual town meeting, or is this projected for a special town meeting?
They're currently considering a special town meeting, because there's always that tension between whether you should do it at an annual or special. I think the general assumption is that you get higher attendance at an annual, but by the time you've spent an hour and a half discussing the budget, how long will somebody actually stick around to discuss zoning changes? So is that the beginning of the meeting? You have all those strategy questions. Sometimes having a special meeting that's focused solely on a specific regulation or a bylaw that draws enough interest from the residents, because you're a town that mails this home to every resident in town and invites them to participate in those meetings. In the past has garnered a lot of support. And we look back over the last 15 years, and all of your zoning changes that you've made have predominantly been made at a special town meeting. So as a community, you've done it that way. But the debate continues as to which is the preferred best way to do it. So tentatively right now they're considering a special, with the understanding that we're going to mail the draft language to every single home, and invite everybody to attend like we do for all other special town meetings. But they haven't finalized that decision yet.
Thank you for that. And for my 2 cents, I would strongly request that it be an annual town meeting when there are a lot more folks there. I've been to annual town meetings for 30 years and special town meetings for 30 years. And special town meetings get about a 10th or a 12th of an annual town meeting for population wise. It's just a much smaller group. And this, though it is a zoning change, it could potentially be a significant zoning change with really just that one sentence removing the maximum of 4 units. So anyway, if select board, it is a public hearing and I guess they're looking for public feedback, I would certainly say I strongly think it should be at an annual meeting. So let's see. Secondarily, thank you, Brian, for sharing the information about that. Irving as a community has been pretty clear for the last, like you said, couple of decades on how it wants to control growth or allow growth. And so it has been pretty consistent. So I appreciate you sharing that. Last, I guess, well, for now, question is, Irving's a pretty small community, 1,500-ish, I'm guessing. Franklin County is a very small county. I'm wondering how many other counties, and you probably you folks maybe don't know this. I'm wondering how many other counties, sorry, excuse me, how many more municipalities have gone this route where they feel they need to meet requirements put forth by the state? Like, are we kind of leading that, or is this something that's common in a Buckland, in a, Northfield, in a here, there, or wherever? And maybe you don't know.
I don't, if you want to know specifically our peers in Franklin County, I don't have that answer. But in terms of us leading on this, we are trailing. If you attend any, like in your profession, I'm sure you go to your statewide counterparts and you hear what they're doing around the state. If you attend any of our statewide counterparts, they've been doing this for 5-10 years. They're on the renewal of their housing production plans, and they've been working with DHCD and their residents to thoughtfully plan for these types of needs and make strategic investments. A lot of the communities that have community preservation funds use funding like that for projects like these. So in any of those communities, they've been doing this for quite some time. So no, we're actually on the tail end of this. I don't know how that puts us in terms of our peers in Franklin County. But I also don't know how many of our peers don't allow anything beyond 4 units either. So we could do that comparative work if that was of interest to folks.
I find it of interest. I mean, it's one thing to be, and again, hey, I'm here for a different reason. I'm just finding all this very interesting.
We might need someone on the planning board, Mark, so be careful.
Oh man, I'll tell you. Thanks.
I hear that.
Yeah, what was my point? Yeah, certainly I could see us falling behind from the state, but I have a sneaking suspicion that other very rural communities, especially, say west of 495, might not be as doing the same things that maybe our eastern counterparts are about this issue. But what do I know? That's just a total guess. Anyway, thank you so much for all that.
Good data, Mark, that Irving's population really hasn't changed over 100 years. We're very stable and very little rental property in Irving compared to our neighboring places.
I have a question. Can I speak?
Yes, Moonlight.
I just, my question is, in general, I have been one for integration and change in the town where you get a larger variety of people. I, for one, would welcome that. And at the same time, we're crossing an area that has the potential for going either way. So my question is, should we not really look at finding a place that we could zero in and make something like that happen so that we could give it to developers and the town would know that it's coming, kind of, rather than to sort of open-end it and then have the town figure out later, oh my God, they're going to move them here. They're going to move the 60 units or 50 units here. Just a question.
So to that question again, I just want to be really clear. The project that is stirring this idea of 50 units is the select board working on the sale of the IP mill. So that's a very specific location that you all have been talking about for 20 years. That's not trying to put a project anywhere other than a former mill site. So there is no conversation that I'm aware of about putting anything of that size in any other community within the town.
Okay.
But I do understand the concern. If you change definitions, does that then invite other opportunities? And I do understand that. With that being said, you already allow multifamily by special permit in Central Village. Yes, it currently has a cap in the definition, but say that was allowed to continue to be the zone that allows multifamily, and maybe it's greater than 4. Maybe let's pretend it's 20 now. If that changes, you're talking about all the properties in the CD zones are now eligible potentially. You still have to deal with all the density requirements of your zoning bylaw. You still have to deal with all of the other restrictions within the zoning bylaw. Not every parcel in any of these zones can just make itself available for that type of development. So I don't want people to leaving here with the idea that huge apartment complexes are going to be built on a 1 acre lot all over town. That's not what this is. But I do appreciate the concern, and if there's another way for us to approach this recommendation that tries to address that concern.
Brian, for the old school building that is the town owns that may
Mhm.
become apartments, how many apartments do you think would fit in there?
We haven't finished the RFP process, but I believe I've heard anywhere from 5 to 10 is somewhere what people are talking about. I believe. Again, that's all anecdotal. I don't have anything in writing.
And that would be village residential right now, right?
That's village residential.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I think what you said though is and I think what Moonlight said, if there was a plan, it would be good. So if possible,
That housing production plan I talked about is really what, as a community, I think we should be working on. So I know we have a lot of zoning work to do and subdivision regs to look at, but I really would like to work with everybody to work on a housing production plan going forward.
okay. Well, if there's no other questions, I'd like to close the public hearing.
I'm looking back over the room. I don't see any other questions or hands raised at this time.
So it's closing the public hearing at 7:46.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
We need
Moonlight.
to-
We missed you.
I know.
Sorry.
Guys, hey, everybody, we need to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Any seconds?
I'll second.
And then we need a roll call. You're right, Deb. Mike Schaefer, aye.
Dennis Vega Leros, aye.
Deb Smith, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for considering that.
Thank you.
We've got 2 A&Rs, and then I think we have some people who are waiting about the solar power access. I'd like to, that was under new business, not anticipated. I'd like to make a motion to go to them so they can get off the conference call. They've been waiting now for a half hour. Make a motion to go to the change for the access to the solar field on French King Highway.
So would we be coming back to the public hearing? Because the board hasn't talked about it or made any decisions yet.
I don't know. I think we all expressed it. Are we supposed to make a recommendation to approve it as is or with modifications? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, the selectmen sent it to us, so I assume, Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume we need to send something back to the selectmen saying we approved it, didn't approve it.
Right. At some point, I think to know how we're going to proceed, whether or not this is going to a town meeting or if it's not going to a town meeting, if it needs further revision and then a future public hearing again. I do think the board would appreciate a response. Whether you do that tonight is up to the three of you.
Personally, I'd prefer to see more, a maximum number of units per different zone. That's my opinion. I don't know if I don't know if you want me to make a motion to I don't know if everybody agrees with me or not, but
That we need to look at, like how big of, the property before you to say how many units per, I don't know, like how many acres, 2 acres, 3 acres? I don't know what the limits are.
it's more than that, Janet, because rural residential is 2 acres, but you really don't want to put 50 units in a rural residential. That's why people live in rural residential, is to stay away from people. So it's not just, it depends on, you need public utilities or I would think it would make it a lot easier to put in a 50 unit place if you had public sewer and water there. Maybe you can do it without it, Brian, I don't know, but it seems like that would be something that you'd want.
The town is substantially covered by sewer, public sewer. In terms of water, you're only covered on Irving side with water. But that doesn't mean that somebody can't install a public water supply and manage it themselves under DEP regulations.
So Janice, I guess your question, you're thinking more even in Central Village that some properties would lend themselves to it and others wouldn't probably,
But I mean, I was just speaking hypothetical, I don't know like how many, is it 1 acre per, 20 units or, something like that. I was just going by size because we live out in the country. Who wants to build, 100 units out in the country? It's just something that I was just thinking about.
Brian, do we know how many units when senior housing was looking over by the senior center, how many units they were thinking?
They provided a range. I think the cap was 50, but they were entertaining as few as 35. I believe that's what the
Okay.
range. And part of that comes down to the financing model. So some of these projects only work with a certain mix of financing options. And so the number of units are part of the formula that they're going to consider as to whether or not they can make a project viable. So
Right.
every developer's got their own financial strategy and mix that they're trying to put forward in their proposal. That it's going to be a mix of studios, single or 2 bedrooms. So we knew in that case we were probably looking at something in between. So we assumed about 40, and we assumed that they were going to use the 40B process. In fact, in the RFP, we said we understand that a developer will likely use the 40B process.
Okay. I mean, I personally, I think there's areas where it could work, and I think there's areas where, no, I definitely would not want to see it. I think that's something where we can adjust the use table to reflect that. So I agree, Mike, I don't necessarily want to see a big development go up in a rural residential area. So we could make that a no. We could just say the heck with special permit, it's just a no. I think CV, there are properties where it could work. Village residential is a little more questionable. French King District, anywhere we just put a PUD, those sites I think would work for it. And I agree. I think Janice is onto something. I think a lot of it kind of depends on the property size and the site that someone's looking at it. And I liked kind of, Moon suggested, well, if we had a site in mind, my only concern with that is, to me at least, that feels like we're getting into a spot zoning situation. By saying, oh, you can only do it at this one very specific site. People have talked about for years wanting senior housing and wanting the IP mill redeveloped. And so I'm just concerned if we do too low of a cap, we're just going to make these things be not attainable. And we're going to have developers that are like, we're just not interested because this isn't beneficial for us. And, you know, people
think-
for a very long time, senior housing has been a huge thing people have been, you know, really, really wanting. And if there's some formula a developer is going to look at and say, well, your cap says 20, but we need 40 to make this viable, I don't want to see our residents lose that. I mean, that's something that our residents have been asking for years. So I kind of feel like it's up to us to make sure that our use table is correct and that our special permit process is strong enough so we can weed out plans that we may not want.
That's fine. I agree with you. So 50 may be a good maximum.
I mean, I agree with you, Mike, and I totally agree with you, Deb, what you were just saying. But yeah, I am looking at, you know, putting up, because I just came home from, you know, where I live, and I see they just pop places up, and I'm like, how many acres is that, you know? So, and out in the country also. So that's why I was just wondering. That's my take.
Are you okay, Deb? So we do have recommendations that we adjust the zoning table somewhat, right? Is that what your recommendation is based on the zone?
Yeah, I think what we should do, I would not do a cap, but then what I would do is if we vote to recommend this change tonight, I would go back and look at the zoning table and revisit where we have changed it to special permit. And, you know, I totally agree, Mike. I think rural residential should just be a no. So I think we can go back and look at that. And I know this could be a great thing whenever we get our new, I can't think of the person who's going to help us with our zoning. This could be a great thing to have them help us with, is how do we structure the special permit process and how do we structure that so we can make sure we have the things that are important to our community in there to weed out a plan we may not want.
All
I
right.
agree with that.
So can I just ask for clarity to make sure that I report back accurately to the select board? It sounds like the planning board may be open to the definition change, but maybe is not open to the use table change.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm new to this, but I think we should, I mean, can we look into it just a little bit more, or do we definitely need to, you know, have a vote tonight?
I think it's up to the three of you if you decide to take a vote tonight. If you're not ready, I'm not going to pressure you to make that decision tonight. But I just want to make sure they're going to be interested in knowing what the takeaways were from tonight. So I would like to be able to at least give them some feedback.
What I'm thinking is that, like how Deb was saying, we don't want to make it too low and then not get, you know, like you're saying, have people come in, have contract or whatever, builders or whatever looking, possibly putting something up. But at the same time, I don't want us to dig a hole and we can't get out of it.
Okay.
I just want to be careful. That's all. That's my main concern. I know, you know, we don't want to go too low, but at the same time, like Mike was saying, we don't want people living out, you know, we're in the rural area. So, I don't know, whatever you two think. I mean, I'm just saying what I think. I mean, Mike, what do you think?
I guess I think there's two, you know, the special permit way is going to fall on the planning board. If someone wants to put in a 50 unit thing, you know, somewhere, like Deb said, it's going to have to be up to the special permit process to prevent it from going in. If we don't think it's appropriate, there won't be any zoning bylaw that prevents it from going in, which we have now. So it puts a lot more burden on the planning board to try. And some of these can get pretty stressful at times. So I just, I think more definition would be helpful. I'm not saying limit it. 50 is okay in commercial central village, and village residential, I think, should be a little less. And then I don't know, you could go down to 4 in rural residential, or 3 or something if you didn't want to have any, you know, if you want to allow some. I don't, that's my opinion.
That's actually an interesting idea. I think, I think for me, I would like, I'm leaning towards, I'm okay with the definition change. I'm not okay with changing the use table right now. I like that idea, Mike, and I think I'd like a little more time to do some research and see how, I think Mark had a great idea of seeing what some of the other smaller communities are doing and what their bylaws look like. So I think I might like to tell the selectmen that we are looking into it and we are considering it, but we need a little more time.
Sunderland just put in a lot of affordable housing. I was at a meeting last week and they were touting that, so might be a place to look to, you know, how they did it. All right, so I guess we're gonna wait until next month, Brian, to give you our final recommendation on that.
Thank you all for having the conversation.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing now, if we can. And did we do that yet? And
Yeah,
okay.
We're good. We can discuss after the public hearing, so we're all set.
And then if we could go, I know Mark's been patiently waiting, but I would like to get to the power company, the solar power field, and get them taken care of if possible.
Sure.
Is that okay with you, Janice, too, please? We're gonna skip.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sounds great.
Can we hear from them, Brian, please? Do you have what you need, Brian, for his drawings?
I'm leaving.
You're muted, Brian.
Can you hear Brian, Deb?
No, I think he's muted.
Either.
Mariah's muted. It looks like he's looking for the documents.
You hear me now?
Like-
Yes.
I'm over this. Steve, can you hear us? Steve? Rob, can you hear us? Looks like their mics are live, but I'm not hearing any audio.
Could they be muted on their own computers or devices?
They look live to me. Is that you, Rob?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Now we
Yes.
can.
Yeah,
Okay.
now we can.
All
Rob,
right.
is there a different site plan other than what you all resubmitted in October?
There is not. Steve, I don't think the site plan has been updated with the comments from Eversource at this point. Steve might be on his computer. There you are. Okay.
If I pull that plan back up from October, it should give you what you need.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Is that zoomed in sufficiently?
Actually, it needs to be out a bit.
Okay. There's 4 pages here. Is there a better page for this?
Okay. Well, this isn't the.
That showed the proposed gate though, that has the chain on it, the first one. It's where, I don't know, I can't point to it. It's to your right just a little bit, Ryan. It's away from Route 2, right there. Oh, you just went over it. Go
Right
back.
here?
No, back. There you go. Right there.
So it's right here.
Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys tonight. Steve, can you hear us?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So we've had a couple of meetings with Eversource regarding the location of this gate, and this particular plan doesn't completely show, I guess, where we would propose relocating this gate. The feedback from Eversource is that they want to have unobstructed access to all their equipment, which means that we basically, they're proposing, and they've asked us to attend this meeting tonight to ask if we could move the gate further to the east. I think it's about 300 feet to be exact, and that distance would allow Eversource to fully, access everything back to the point of interconnection, which basically is kind of the demarcation line between our project and their equipment. So just in a nutshell, we're just asking to put this, relocate the gate a little bit further back in the woods. I know we talked about, Brian, I guess, potentially illicit activities, and that's why this gate is here. But I think, preference is to at least move the gate. If that's not acceptable, we might look into other options, but that's why we're here.
Would it be would it be right up close to your fence around your solar panels?
The solar panels are a bit further back, there's actually a road that goes pretty far into the woods. Steve, I don't know how far that road goes back, but
It's a couple hundred feet.
yeah, the other gate at the solar project though.
It goes around the bend, so the road then veers south and leads to the solar array, to the fenced array. So it's a couple hundred more feet.
And you'll have a gate, another gate to keep people from going into the field itself, or am I wrong?
That's
Oh,
correct.
yes.
There's one gate, right at the solar field, and then this road kind of meanders through the woods.
Right.
And, we've proposed another gate to kind of prevent folks from kind of driving in and having a party or whatever, so.
Well, it's right near the police station. It's not a very good place to go partying. I don't think.
Fair enough.
Are these locked gates or are they going to be left unlocked?
We'd rather have it locked. So, and the only way Eversource wants it, would accept it to be locked is if it was outside their equipment. So their equipment runs about, I think it's about 300 feet back into the woods. So otherwise, I guess they would ask us, that we could have the gate there as kind of a visual deterrent, but it wouldn't really fully prevent access, to the backwoods there.
I'm looking at the full project drawing now. It looks like, yeah, it's about 300 feet from Route 2 to Eversource's pole-mounted equipment. Then another 300 feet until the road veers to the south, and then probably 400 or 500 feet until you reach the solar array, which is behind a locked gate.
Are we able to share our screens by any chance?
Of course,
Maybe.
give me a second. Who do you
Steve,
want to have presenting, Steve?
Steve, maybe you could share that plan. I think that would be helpful.
Sure. Let me see how I can do that.
Get screenshot.
So can you see this?
Yes. Yep.
So this was an earlier draft, but showing there's Route 2, the turnaround, the access road would go in here, and the pole-mounted equipment is right about here where my hand cursor is. So it's quite a ways till you get to the solar array.
And we would propose relocating the gate basically right at where it says overhead electric. There's like a black dot there,
Yeah.
and that's where our equipment starts and where Eversource's equipment ends.
No.
I can't see any issues with it. Brian, do you have any?
The only question, so Steve and Rob, you said that your preference is still to have it locked if it's done at that location?
Correct. Would like a
Okay.
knock box.
Yeah, as long as it's a Knox box keyed to Irving and the chief has that access information for you, we have no concerns.
Very good.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just personally, I would prefer to see it locked. I think an unlocked gate in the woods off of Route 2 are going to invite people.
Right.
Quads, four-wheelers, ATVers, all, I just.
Totally get it. Yep. We'll definitely have it locked with the Knox box.
So it'll be locked just past this interconnection point. That's the idea here.
That works for us.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve relocation of the gate past onto your property, the OHE point. And anybody second?
Second.
Okay. Mike Schaefer, yay.
Janice Vegaluros, yay.
Deb Smith, yay.
Okay, it passed unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for bearing with us through our public hearing.
I appreciate
Sure,
the time.
thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ryan, I know Mariah wrote a little memo last time summarizing our approval. I don't know if we need to do that again or not.
If Steve and Rob would like a memorandum summarizing that, we can definitely do that. Would that be helpful, Steve, or are you
Yeah,
all set?
I think that would be helpful just to have it in a letter format. That's what you provided the last time we came before you in October. So just a simple letter.
We'll do that again.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, back to the agenda.
Do you want to, Mike, would you want to just get Mark's A&R done?
Yes,
Okay, well,
that's
he's
what I
here.
was going to go to next. Well, I think we should talk about, didn't we have a recruitment of a new member? Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, served on a few boards in town for many years, and I don't know, little tied up at the moment, but maybe my wife, she was on school committee for many years, and she was here in and out and found some of this interesting. So you never know.
Oh, good.
But thank you for that.
Well, you have an A&R. Yeah, we'll turn it over to you and you can explain your approval not required.
Yeah,
change that looks-
sure. Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for doing what you folks do. I know that, as I said, serving on different boards and things for the town, it takes up your time, and I appreciate it. Ours is very simple. It is just a simple little boundary line adjustment to give ourselves a little more land. The adjustment is on land that my brother owns, and so we are just going to take a portion of it. I don't even know how much it actually results in, and so that's what we're looking to do.
I look, can you bring up the A&R, Brian, by any chance or not? The map, I did look at it with you, or with Dick, I guess.
Yeah,
I went in, and it's
Let me see if it's in the file. One moment.
not really, you're not doing any, you're just making your lot more conforming. There's nothing you're doing that's gonna cause any problems, I mean, that I can see, so.
It does not create any new building lots. It does not, do anything of the sort. Actually, a bonus is our lot right now is currently non-conforming. We have a right of way for our driveway off my brother's land, and so this will actually put our driveway with ours. So I'm sure the planning board would be happy to have a conforming lot in that regard.
Yeah, so you're,
This is what was in the file for this. Is that the correct
yeah,
layout?
that's it, that's correct,
That's-
yeah.
You could even, I don't know, Brian, if you can zoom in more, you might be maxed out, but it is that one that is encircled in blue, the smaller one.
Yeah, the dotted line.
Yep, dotted line is the current boundary line. And so the solid line will be where it extends to. Gives us a bit more of a tree line for any future development on other lots.
Where's your driveway now, Mark? Is it?
If you, I don't know if Brian can zoom in even more to that, really see. And there you go. So you can see the house, number 25 there is the house.
Yeah.
And that driveway, oh, I'm here pointing with my clicker, my mouse. Yeah. Ooh. The driveway is, it goes down to Swab Road there. You can see there's kind of a split. There's a gravel kind of, it's not a driveway, gravel road, but you can see at the road where that driveway comes up and in. Yep, there you go, Brian. And so
that
now
goes into, that leads to the back 50 acres or whatever is back there, or what, I don't know, what's
that dirt one does right now, that gravel one. But that's not our main driveway. Like to the left, gravel is what is paved right now for our driveway leading to our, parking area in front of our house or to the side of our house.
and now it will all be on your property where it's on your brother's now, part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we could have kept it as is. Obviously, we're legally okay. We have the right of way, and would have saved us $2,000 for surveying fees and whatnot. But nice little peace of mind to have this all together on one lot.
Well, I don't have any objections to the A&R, so, well, I guess we need to fill out a form. If first, I'll make a motion that we approve this A&R. Any seconds?
Yeah, second.
All in favor? Mike Schaefer, yay.
Deb Smith, yay.
Janice Bigelow, yay.
Okay, it's unanimous. But the next step is there's an approval form that we'll have to sign off on in the town office, and usually Mariah or will let people know when it's done, and you could come by and pick it up. But I would think in a week, probably about a week's time, we should have it signed off, hopefully.
We'll get
That
that
would-
all ready with the planning board members. It's ready for signature. And once it's all signed and recorded with the town clerk, we'll get it back to the Burnett's.
That sounds great. I appreciate it because we'd like to move forward for sure, like anybody, I guess, that comes here. So thanks so much.
The other thing, if we didn't do anything, it would still go through okay. So that's the other good part of this.
Right.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you, Mark. And I tell your wife we really would love to have some new people on.
She had to, she's a little bummed. She had to scoot out, pick up my son from his basketball practice over in Turner's. But yeah, I'll let her know that. And just as, again, thank you for everything. I'm happy I happened to be here for that informational session. That was interesting and, just got me thinking about different things. So I appreciate your thoughts, and I like some of the things that both of you said about wanting more information and maybe more clarification. I think that's wise always when something could be a larger change. And yeah. Oh, and lastly, I would just say, whenever you get some folks in the meeting who are being paid to be here, always make them wait after the residents. Because they're going to get paid anyway. I didn't mind because I found it. All right, my friend. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Good
Have a
night.
good night.
All right. What else do we have? Minutes of the meetings.
People.
This one I had.
Yeah, this is the one that Sun He did for last month. Let's read through that quickly. Present were Mike Schaefer, Deborah Smith, Sun He May, and guests were Brian, Mariah, and review mail by Mike. Moonlight to resign due to health concerns. Review August minutes. Deb makes a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Mike seconds, I'll say yay. 7:15 public meeting with attending Brandon Rowe, Brenda Silva, Carol Liddell, Dan Hammock, David Grove, Dennis Monty, Lindsay Dunn, Dan Barrett, Lily, Mark Bennett, McKill, Stoon, Morris Housen, Rebecca Hubbard, and Philip Johnson. Yeah, I didn't get all their names. That's good. Summary of changes to unit and zoning map. Mariah gave an overview. Question and answers from the public meeting. 7:58 p.m. Deb makes a motion to close the public meeting. Mike seconds, all yay. Planning board minutes from September 2021. Mike makes a motion to accept the minutes as written. Deb seconds, all yay. Discussion steps for next town meeting and bring up concerns from the public hearing and presentations and email. Let select board know that a public hearing was held. Select board requests for another public hearing for the use table for residential uses. That was tonight. Mike makes a motion to have the public hearing on December 16th to view the select board's revised use table, definition of multi-unit dwelling. Deb seconds, all yay. Next planning board meeting, December 16th. Mike makes motion to accept a $60,000 grant to procure zoning consultant and to authorize Brian Smith to sign contracts. I'll say yay. We adjourn the meeting at 8:15, respectively submitted by Sunny May. Any changes, Deb, you see there?
Yeah, and this might be a Brian question. So Northfield just got nailed for an open meeting law violation, I believe, because they did not include question and answer summaries during public hearings. So I'm wondering if that's something that Sunny needs to go back and make sure that is in the minutes. There was just an article in the Recorder about it, and I don't know how much of a concern that is for our minutes.
Mariah put together a detailed report and she did a better job capturing the questions and answers. Maybe we could attach that to this. Let's go. Can you pull up Mariah's report from? She edited my report. Well, she basically rewrote my report, so it looks a lot better than it should. But I think if we could attach that to this, it would be good. Like, yeah, it's hard to capture all those questions and answers, though. It really, you know.
I'm looking for it.
I can probably find it if.
I think this is it. Let me just see the date on this. Yeah, this is it.
Hers looks good. Mine didn't look too good.
All right, let me just change the application.
Can Janice see the presentations?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good.
You guys can't see me, can you?
Should be refreshing right now. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. So she added all the legal stuff up front about where she put it in the recorder for 2 consecutive weeks. The postcard sent to that mailing address in town, and she also posted it at the town hall and Irving Public Library. The hearing was held online and began with an in-depth presentation of proposed amendments by Assistant Town Planner Mariah Kurtz. Amendments included updates to the zoning map in addition of planned unit development overlay district. Upon conclusion, attendees were invited to ask questions or make comments. There were 16 attendees, but not including the board members and support staff. questions and concerns expressed. Rebecca Hubbard expressed thanks for the work put into the plan and for making information available at the library. Brandon Burrow questioned why some parcels on the map included multiple zoning districts. It's common practice to have districts to be measured from a distance from a landmark, unlikely to change like from Route 2. Most of our district boundaries are measured this way, with exceptions to some instances where we follow large boundary parcels, which are unlikely to change, such as the Irving State Forest. David Brule had concerns about potential PUDs at the renovator supply, concerned that traffic flow and density may be an issue in the river Strachan, how do you say it? Strachan, Warner Street neighborhood if the planned unit develop overlay is put in a place at the current renovators supply property to only one road surfacing the area, unlike other PUD locations. Primarily Mariah responded, the mill area is already zoned Central Village under current zoning bylaws, so the allowed use is not changing with introduction of PUD. CV also allows various residential, commercial, and industrial uses by right or special permit. The PUD is an option for developers who want to propose a flexible mixed-use design, and the planning board can review it with them. All access to the property must go through one entry exit to the public way unless the planning board grants otherwise. That looks good. Anything there by anybody? Next was, I questioned whether the planned unit development area proposed at the current Irving paper mill, whether it posed an issue having the PUD on both sides of Route 2. It's not an issue, but there would have to be two separate PUDs if you were going to put one on each side of the road, I think. You know, you could only have one entrance on each side. And then Morris questioned why the PUD did not cover the entire parcel in Irving Center, which is north of Route 2. And we responded, the PUD is only overlapping areas zone Central Village. And then this was a note I had made to the select board, expressed at a previous joint meeting with the planning board and select board, that he believes parcels within the PUD should have both public water and sewer. French King has neither, and Irving paper only sewer. And that wasn't just me, that was what Peggy Sloan had said when we started developing the PUD bylaw. So I guess that would be my only thing I'd like to. So it's just not my opinion, it's somebody else's opinion too.
And the only thing I'll say to that, it's your opinion, I'm fine with it. It wasn't expressed at the last meeting, so it should not be included in this document, because this document is only what was talked about at the last meeting. So it's kind of like minutes. You can't put stuff in minutes that didn't happen at that meeting that the minutes are for. So that's the only thing I would say. I think the document is great. Thank you, Mariah, for doing it. But I would just say that to me needs to come out.
Well, as long as the select board remembers that, I mean, that's, well, I've told them a couple times, and you can remove it if you want. Well, it's not captured anywhere else that I know of.
It should, well, I mean, it should be in minutes, and you did send that. You sent the email that you had sent to the select board. And of course, I mean, you absolutely have the right to say it at a meeting.
No minute. Yeah, the select board meeting, I didn't see the minutes where that was noted in it. If it is, that would be suffice too. I don't know, Brian, if you can show me that when I spoke with the joint meeting. I didn't see any minutes from that meeting.
I don't have anything ready for tonight to show you, so I can't help you tonight, but I can do that in the future.
But as long as it's captured somewhere, that's all I care about.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I'm not, Mike, I'm not trying to argue your opinion. I think you're absolutely entitled to your opinion, and I do want it to be noted. I'm just looking at this from the perspective of it being.
No, you can remove it from there. I didn't say it during that meeting.
So what would come out
The last
Last
paragraph.
paragraph,
right here?
yeah. And just make sure it got in that Peggy Sloan and I both feel that's something that should, you need, you'll have, like you said, they would have to put in their own public drinking supply if there's no water in a certain area,
It's all controlled by DEP.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, Mike, I was at those meetings and I don't recall Peggy saying that.
It was right at the beginning.
Right, and I just want to point out, half of Irving does not have public water, and it's multi-million dollars to do it. So it's not anything that's going to happen anytime soon. Pretty much no one on my end of town has public water. We all have wells.
I know. I didn't know that until we started doing the pods. I thought you guys had water up there.
Yeah.
At least you have sewer. That's more than I got. I got nothing.
The regulations for a public water supply are definitely strict for good reason. It does make development challenging because all of your development is concentrated along either Route 2 or the river. And you can have some overlapping groundwater protection zones with a river, but you can't with Route 2. So it definitely makes it challenging.
I think the French King, Mariah spoke to them and they would welcome public, water and sewer there, she said, so.
Yep. No, there's definitely been requests for additional water and sewer coverage. It's all got to be based on votes at town meeting and appropriations.
Anyway.
Okay, so I make a motion to accept the public hearing report as amended. Any second?
I'll second.
Mike Schaefer, yay.
Janice Vega Liros, yay.
Deb Smith, yeah, yes.
And then we can attach this to Sunhees minutes. Like I would think that would be good if we could do that.
We did not vote to accept Sunhees minutes, just so we have to go back and do that.
Oh, did you want me to go back to that page?
All right. I'll make a can we add something under the question and answers, see attached page, Q&A? The public hearing, you could maybe put in parentheses, details of hearing attached, or I don't know.
Mike,
Yeah, I think
I wrote for the minutes, I wrote, please see attached public hearing report document.
Okay.
So I need a second.
okay, I second.
You motioned, you can't second.
Oh.
Second.
It's getting late.
All right, Mike Schaefer, yay.
Janice Vega Liros, yay.
Deb Smith, yay.
All right, thank you, Deb. All right,
Was there another set of minutes that came before this meeting?
yeah, Deb had one.
Yep.
From what, no, October?
Yep.
That displaying for everybody?
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, the board, okay, the call to order at 6:58. Approval of minutes and mail. Passed over to next meeting. Mike reviewed, nothing needing action. Review of codification changes. What, I want a motion? No, something's not right. On it, maybe it's on a motion.
Oh, yep, got it.
On a motion by Mike and seconded by Moonlight, the planning board in favor to move to this topic. The board was joined by town council Donna McNichol. Donna pointed out that using any type of webinar-based meeting platform, all votes must be taken in a roll call format. Yeah, that was something we weren't doing before. Donna gave the planning board some tips on how to present the PUD zoning map and zoning changes at town meeting. She recommended getting any type of housekeeping items first and then moving to the topics that are more in depth and may generate more public comment or questions. She also suggested giving full presentations first, then taking questions after. This way the presentation stays on track and timely. And she recommended that a town meeting, the PUD bylaw be presented first and the zoning map. That way, if the PUD fails, we can motion to amend the map to remove the PUD and move forward the map. So she had a lot of good information at that meeting. And oh, you actually got all the codifications. I don't have them in front of me, and I can't remember if they're correct or not, but I know Mariah was looking for this information, so she wants to bring up that at our next meeting, the codification, and she had some other towns that had been doing it, and I didn't really read their information, but so that looks good, those three. Donna pointed out that the bylaws are living documents and should be reviewed annually. This will make sure they are staying current with any new changed laws and still working effective for our community. Robert explained the new purpose of the curb cut for Eversource. He explained Eversource had requested the change for ease of getting trucks in and out of the site. Andrew explained there are no changes to Route 2 and that the work with the current landowner designed the newly proposed curb cut on a motion made by Mike and seconded by Moonlight. Planning board voted unanimously to approve the site as plan is modified. I guess next page. Anything? Got it? Oh, no. Okay, zoning changes. Moonlight questioned the loss of land by changing zoning districts. Mariah explained that no land is lost. The frontage is what is changing. That by changing the zoning in some areas, the frontage requirements may increase or decrease. Mariah went over all the zoning changes for the board. Mike pointed out that we needed to add the PUD in the area by the senior center. Mariah explained that documents would also be available at the town library for residents to review. Deb asked if we could also send postcards to all the residents, notifying them of the hearing. Janice stated postcards are a good idea and suggested that the website meeting link be included on them. I think that's been a really good thing to do for these public hearings. On a motion by Mike to proceed under Chapter 40A, Section 5, with presenting the select board proposed zoning map amendments and public amendment, Moonlight seconded and planning board unanimously agreed. So that set it into motion, I guess, for Mariah to do everything she needed to do to get it to town meeting, right? And then Mariah, marijuana bylaw updates. Was there, I don't think we did much on that, did we?
No, we didn't do anything on any of the rest of them.
No, passed over. Adjournment seconded by Janice. The planning board voted unanimously adjourned at 8:50. The next planning board meeting November 18th at 7 p.m. I think it looks good as written. Any changes from any, oh, that one on motion instead of one motion. I mean,
Yeah.
anything else, Janice, you see?
I see, I mean, I remember, this is the way I remember the meeting.
That was your first meeting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Brian, could you do me a
Yeah.
favor? Would you scroll up to the top? And then Janice, would you just check and make sure I spelt your name properly? I have a bad habit of misspelling people's names.
You spelled it right, and I know like on today's meeting, it's Lions instead of Leros.
Lions, right? L-O-I-N-S.
So it's Leros, Liros.
Oh, it is. That's correct.
That one's
I'm-
correct, but for like today's meeting, when you guys put it on there, I saw my last name was spelt wrong.
That might have been me.
Okay, it happens.
Sorry. All right.
So we just need a vote.
I make a motion to accept as written.
As amended.
Oh, as amended. I'm sorry.
Typo.
A second.
Mike Schaefer, yay.
Isabella Leros, yay.
Deb Smith, yes.
Okay. I guess mail, I can go through really quickly with you. There were, there was Moonlight's resignation letter. He sent a letter to us just saying he had to resign due to health issues. I got some invoices from the recorder, and just for the public hearing we did last in November, it was over $500. So we're spending money now if we weren't before, just to let you know. And the postcards are probably quite expensive too, I would imagine. So I don't know, Brian, if you know what they run, but
Couple hundred.
yeah. So we're
Yeah.
probably spending close to $1,000 to do some of these public hearings with all the advertisement and mailing. And I think that's a good thing. I really do. I don't think that's a bad thing. We got a FedEx for a $40,000 bond on Jackie's solar field that Brian's gonna file, I guess, with the project. And is that Brian, just in case something goes wrong? Is that
Right. You have a
is that what it
condition,
is, kind of contingency?
you issued permits for both projects and you required that there be a surety bond in case something went default, something defaulted for the project and you had to have them decommissioned. And so each of these projects are responsible for keeping that bond in good stead and on file with you. So every time they change surety companies or the bond gets reissued, you're going to get an update like that.
And then the local mailings I get from other towns, there's a cannabis retailer going into Orange and one going into Gill, auto sales in Gill. There was an interesting one is in Montague, a battery storage area for solar is so that may be something you don't think of, but it's something that may be coming too. Is and in Mount Herman they're putting a wireless cell tower inside one of the buildings at Mount Herman. that's about all I got for mail, so. Let's see, next on this was budget review. I don't, she put it down as consultant line item 1. I'm not sure. I was looking more really for 2 things. One is, do we need clerical help, especially if we're going to have a consultant to keep everything straight? And I mean, some of the things that would have been helpful for me is if they scan the mail and send it to me rather than going in and picking it up and then having it attached to our minutes, electronically. That was some clerical things that I thought might be helpful for the planning board. But I'm not sure what she had as consultant 1. I'm not, she rewrote that.
Sorry, it's freezing for some reason. Come on. So, looks like this is your printout from about a month ago at this point. So you have a $5,000, or excuse me, you have a $9,075 budget. And to date, well, as of a month ago, your to date expenses have been $1,228. So the question I think had to do with what your FY23 budget request was. The email response I got was to level fund for now, so that's what I've presented so far to FinCom and Select Board was a level funded request.
Yeah, there's seminars. Janice, there used to be some really good seminars people could go to in Worcester and other places, and we would reimburse people for travel. But since COVID, we really haven't done much seminars or travel. Now, Brian, all the educational stuff, where does that come out? Like the postings, the mailings and things, is that in one of these categories or?
Definitely coming out of your expense line.
So that hasn't really been updated. I mean, I know we've spent a couple $1,000 in the last.
Well, if you've got the invoices then they haven't been paid yet.
Right.
So those will show up there, yes.
Okay.
What about seminars online though?
I'm sorry, Janice, I couldn't hear you.
Seminars online.
Seminars online?
Some
of them are online, yeah.
Do some, you still have to pay for them, I believe, if we can reimburse you for those.
The Conservation Commission's been doing some online seminars through their professional organization. And what they do is they let me know that they want to register, and we make it so that they send the invoice to Town Hall so that nobody has to pay in advance out of their own pocket.
Janice, I can forward you any information I get on the, I do get, FERCog is Franklin County regional government. They help us keep up on all what's being offered, so I can forward those to you.
Yeah, that sounds good, Mike, if you could just do that.
Yeah, and Moonlight was the FERCog representative. I had resigned from that. I'll try to stay on it until somebody else says they want to be the FERCog representative. But but they're a good group of people. But I know Sun He and I went, and Jackie and Bill, they used to be at Holy Cross College in Worcester, a 2-day event where it was really good information. I mean, but I miss those days, I guess. So if we did, what I was looking for was clerical help, and I don't, maybe Brian, you don't think that we need it, I don't know, but it would make it easier for whoever is the chairman if there was someone who could check the mail and scan it.
So no, I am not taking a position on that one way or the other. What I have told you all is that it's your decision if you want assistance. The funding would have to come from your budget, so you know what your budget is. And if you wanted to expand that for FY23, you all have to request something more than this. If you just want assistance with meeting minutes, boards like the school committee have elected to have a vendor that just comes in, watches your meetings, takes your minutes, and has them ready for your next meeting. So that's usually a contracted service. If you're looking for somebody to come in and do your filing and your mail, that's a clerical position that you'd hire for. Your challenge is going to be the number of hours that you need a week are somewhere in the ballpark of 1, maybe 2 hours a week. I don't know who's going to come do that for 1 to 2 hours a week.
Right.
That's going to be a very hard position to recruit for. And I
Right.
don't have any other board or commission asking for that right now.
How about now the minutes one? Deb's been good to take minutes the last when Sun He's not available, but what it would be nice to have someone be able to take minutes and get them out like in a few days. I don't know what the expectation is from the school board. How long do they have to issue a draft minutes?
That I don't know, but you would set that expectation with the vendor.
But I mean, the minutes are important. I think one of the most important things of a meeting. It's what you're going to work on and who's going to do what. And so I would recommend we look at somebody to do minutes. I don't know, Deb. I know you've been good enough to volunteer the last couple of times, but you're busy, and it's nothing anybody really has done a super good job doing.
Well, so I have a couple of thoughts on this. I've served on committees, I've chaired committees. I'm currently the chair of the finance committee. No other committee has this kind of support. I chair the finance committee. That is basically 5 months of my life, meeting. You know, thankfully the Board of Selectmen have changed their schedule a bit, and it's not every Monday night anymore. These are my duties as a chair. So clerical, checking mail, things like that, I'm responsible for that. And as the chair of the finance committee, I don't even get a stipend. So some of this, I'm kind of like, that's the responsibility of the chair. And minutes, I think minutes are something, I was taught how to do minutes. Jackie was excellent when I started. I happened to start, and Jackie was on the planning board with me. She was on the library building committee with me. So she actually gave me Robert's rules and said, this is how you do minutes. This is what needs to be included in them. And so I think for Sun He, she didn't really get that guidance. And so I think if, you know, Mike, if you sit with her and say, this is what I expect to be in the minutes, I think she'll do great at them. I don't
know. I think you got to get them out in a timely manner, and I haven't seen that happen from anybody on the planning board, really.
You don't have to. So the way the minutes work is you have to have them approved within a timely manner. So for timely manner is dependent on when your board meets. So our board only meets once a month. So as long as we're approving them pretty much monthly, we're okay. If like say tomorrow morning, Brian receives a public records request for tonight's minutes, Brian would shoot me an email and say, I need your draft. And I would give Brian the draft. They do not have to be polished. They don't have to be perfect. A draft minutes suffice in that situation until the minutes have been approved at the following meeting. So as long as we're not backlogged and we don't have minutes from 5 months ago, we're well within compliance. I know I've watched the select board, approve minutes that are 3 months old. We did it on the library building committee. You have other more pressing work, and minutes are kind of the thing that everybody goes, we can do that next month. And so that's, I think we're well within compliance for minutes.
Well, I don't, and I think your minutes are your action items. So if you don't have action items coming out from months after a meeting, you're kind of doomed to get things done. That's my opinion. I mean, I've worked in industry my whole life. You probably have too. You have to have people accountable to do things.
Well, then I guess I would say if you feel Sunhee isn't doing it, I kind of feel bad because she's not here tonight, but if you feel she isn't doing it to the standard that you would like, I think as the chair, that's when you have to reach out to her and say to her, hey, this isn't the standard that's required of the board. And so this is what I'm looking for from you. And that's up to her to say, I don't think I can do that, or thank you for the feedback. And, and working on it. I know she's asked me for feedback in the past and I've tried to give that to her. Minutes are hard when you've never taken them before. It's not, I've said this to Brian, joining a committee, you kind of get thrown into the deep end and people just assume you know what you're doing. I feel fortunate that Jackie kind of mentored me a little bit and said, she literally told me, here is Robert's rules. I can remember her kind of storming over to where she kept them in her office and said, here's this, read it, and you follow this. That's, I had someone who kind of guided me and said, this is what I expect, this is what I want. You can
Maybe
give
I'm
her
trying to use minutes for something different than what they're intended to, but it's not working the way it is. I mean, that's my opinion. I feel like it's pretty ineffective. Maybe it needs an action item list that comes out but it's not, you can't wait 2 months to determine who was supposed to do something 2 months ago.
So I guess to me, this is the first I'm hearing that is something that you would like, because to me, an action item list is different than the minutes. Minutes are meant to be a recap of a meeting. They're meant so in a year from now when someone goes, what the heck was that board thinking? You can go to the vault and you can pull those minutes and you can look at it and you see, a snippet of the discussion, the vote that was taken, and the reasoning why things were done. So to me, I understand that you can use minutes to create an action item list, but minutes are not meant to actually be that action item list. So if you want a list, I think that's something that you need to say to her, Sunhee, on top of that as the secretary, this is what I would like produced. Because for me, those are two very different and distinct things.
Yeah, I always put them into the one document. It's always been that.
And I agree.
Part of the minutes.
You can totally have it be part of the minutes, but I think an action item is different than the actual minutes. And I will say, I'm only speaking for myself here personally as a FinCom member. I don't see the Finance Committee supporting a secretarial role for one board. That's going to be a very expensive thing. Like Brian said, it's going to have to be a minimum wage position. So that's, what is it now, $14 or $15 an hour? Maybe if the board was willing to give up their stipends, but we're stipend board, and with that comes the responsibility. So I think on some level, we do have to say, we're here, we have responsibilities. I don't necessarily enjoy doing minutes, but it's when I did it for all the other boards, it was the position I was picked for. So I did it. It's to me, it's what comes with volunteering.
I don't necessarily agree with that. It's what the board wants. It's up to the board to make that decision.
All right. Well, I've expressed my opinion. So, right now we're not going through the amount of money we have anyhow. So, I guess we can. Is that what you're putting in for next year, Brian? $29,000? Is that?
That's what I put forward because I have not been given any other instructions.
I don't think I can give you any other instruction now. Nobody. So. Anybody want to make any changes to this?
Deb?
All I can do is, Janice, I hope you can take some of these seminars, and you know, the FERCog meetings are good too. They're online. If you ever want, I can send you an invite to one of those, and you can sit in and listen. They talk about current events, housing, and river things, and all kinds of things. Well, the train going from Boston to North Adams, things like that. So it's interesting.
Okay, I'd appreciate if you did send me an email with a link or let me go check in.
Yeah, I will do that. All right. So Brian, I would just go levels like you did.
Okay. Let me pull your agenda back up.
I think we were talking about she's got something, rural and small town development grant for a zoning consultant. So you, Brian, I think you contacted the state, you said, about that?
Yep. I reached out to them just to ask where the contract documents were. They apologized that they're behind on getting those out to the towns. And so they told me to expect them the third week of December, which should be this week. And as soon as we receive them, we could get them back and executed. Once the contract's signed by the state, they always send it to us. We execute it on our end, then they get it back. When we receive it back with their signature, then we can proceed. And so maybe at your January meeting, we could be working on a scope of work for what you're looking to hire in terms of a consultant, and hopefully have somebody for you to award in February.
That would be, yeah, I mean, we need, I guess, next steps, lay out exactly what we want to change and what I know we talked last meeting about doing the code and the introduction and and the zoning changes, and now probably the table changes for multiple units.
Okay.
So we have a lot of things we want to bring forward quickly, and then I think what Donna said was don't bring too many very controversial things forward at once. So we want to make sure we don't overload that either.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then the last thing, Brian, I skipped over your A&R for the Pleasant Street for the town of Irving. Could
Yeah,
you go
pull that back.
through that quick?
Yeah, it'll just take me a second. So we are filing an A&R for the layout of Pleasant Street. Pull that back up. The proposal is not to take any land from anybody. Let's see. 22nd. It's basically to reaffirm the existing, where is it? It wasn't where I thought it would be. Let me check one more folder. There it is. Is everybody familiar with where Pleasant Street is in town?
I thought I was, but I don't know.
So Pleasant Street is a town road that has been adopted since the early 1900s. I believe 1903 was the year that the select board laid it out. It's a layout that was originally done back in the 1800s by the Moore family. They were the owners of the tool mill down at the end of River Street. And they owned all of this land that then became housing for their workers. So there's a lot of documents in all three villages that have to do with the layout of the roads and the maps on file with the mills. And so sometimes things got blurred together even though they shouldn't have been. So Pleasant Street being laid out where it is today was supposed to, in 1903, according to the select board, encompass what was called Maple Street. And we have a sign up there that calls it Maple Street today. There's a reference note here. So this little leg between Prospect Street and Central Street is what we call Maple Street today. It says on here formerly Maple Street, but if you go back to the layout of August 21st, 1903, the select board did not call this Maple Street. This was meant to be called Pleasant Street. They were referring to the Moore heirs estate. The Moores had a survey done of all these roads, and the Moores wanted it to be called Maple Street, but the select board in 1903 did not. So I don't know how this happened over the last 100 years, but somehow Maple Street still popped up, even though it was never laid out that way. So one of the changes that would be done by laying this out correctly would be to incorporate, as the select board meant to in 1903, that what is now referred to as Maple Street should be Pleasant Street. There are no addresses on Maple Street. There are no utility poles with addresses on Maple Street, so this would not change 911. This wouldn't change anything. It's simply the changing of two street name posts. And I guess maybe people who fondly think of Maple Street may have an opinion on that, but it does not take any land. You can see the dotted lines are the contours of the paved surface, and the solid lines are the limits of the existing boundary. The only thing that we've done is just replace some missing markers that the surveyor noticed were missing, so he put them back so that they'd be there for the future. So that's that on that section. The rest of this is what people know as Pleasant Street today, beginning at Central Street, crossing Union Street, going all the way past what is the graded school to this corner here. So all of this, again, existing layout. We're not proposing to take any layout. You can see the sidewalk that accompanies the road is right there. The other thing that this is doing, and you'll see the note here, I can zoom in a little bit closer. This tail end of Pleasant Street makes a 90-degree turn and goes down and connects to a really wide entrance to Moore Street. This was known as North Street. North Street used to run across Route 2 and connect to Forest Street. We now call the upper section of that Kavanaugh Lane. But back in the 80s, you discontinued most of North Street. And there's actually a little sliver of land here. You can see these two bounds on the corner here. That was actually land that was North Street that the town sold to Lee and Ida Hammond over here on this corner property here. So we never, since the 80s when that was done, we have never taken a vote at town meeting to incorporate what was left of North Street as Pleasant Street. You all turn on it as Pleasant Street, and it has a street name that says it's Pleasant Street, but legally we never did that at town meeting. So this proposal is simply just to take these three bits of this road that we've all been using and legally stitch it back together as Pleasant Street. It doesn't change addresses. It actually corrects because this property that says Lee and Ida Hammond has a Pleasant Street address. Technically, it abuts what was North Street. So it will actually reaffirm that that is indeed Pleasant Street. And then it just makes that one change to what people now call Maple Street. But that's all it's doing.
I don't see any issue with that, Brian. Thank you for going through it.
Of course.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the A&R for Pleasant Street. Any seconds? Okay, all in favor? Mike Schaefer, yay.
Janice Vigaleros, yay.
Deb Smith, yeah.
Thank you, it's unanimous.
So
I think we're pretty, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say, I said thank you, and then I will have that ready for your signature. It's one of those ones where it's got multiple sheets to it, so I need signatures on the Mylar that will get recorded at the registry. And then there's copies underneath for the different offices that keep records. So I'll put that out there for you all. And I just wanted to make you aware that you had approved 3 other A&Rs for road layouts back in August. One was Public Works Boulevard, one was the change to Care Drive, and the other one was just to redo Highland Avenue with a little taking up at the top of Highland Avenue, Mr. Pollard's property. So you've already approved them. I was working on recording them with the town clerk the other day, getting ready for town meeting, and we made an error and he wrote the wrong date in his space on there. So he would like to have a fresh Mylar re-signed for recording so it looks proper. So I did ask the surveyor to reprint those. So I may ask you all to re-sign the ones you already approved. No changes have been made.
Put the date that you want us to sign on them.
What I'll do is I'll have it all laid out exactly the way you had it, and I can even have the copy that you signed right next to it, so you can see that they're exactly the same.
No, I didn't mean that. I just want to make sure we write the right date that you want on it.
Absolutely. I'll put your August meeting date on there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm pretty tired. I think we covered pretty much everything. There was a little bit about auxiliary dwelling units. We can pick up next time. Mariah did send out an interesting thing just before the meeting that mobile mini homes in one town are considered an auxiliary dwelling unit if they conceal the wheels and the hitch. So that's something I had never considered really as an auxiliary dwelling unit, but they don't get permitted as a house. They don't get an occupancy. They get permitted as I don't know, an RV or something. It doesn't go through the same inspection a house would go through. I think is what the bylaw said. But that's a pretty neat option, really. I would think you could put a mobile home in your backyard. All right. Any other topics not anticipated?
Just 2 things. At the first set of budget hearings the other night, Dick Newton did note that the codification process, that the zoning numbers need to be worked on. So if that could just get put on the January agenda.
Right.
And then I would appreciate, Mike, if you have problems with how people are working on our board, that you address them so things can get figured out and not fester. I think it's a little unfair for Sunhee to get called out the way you did tonight with her not being here. And she's been taking minutes for 8 months now, I think. And I think if you had a concern with that, it would have been nice if you had addressed it with her sooner so she knew that there was a problem and so she had the opportunity to work on it. And I would ask if you have a problem with anybody else or the way this board is running in general, that you address it with us.
Well, that's why I asked for more help,
Which I understand, but we have responsibilities as board members. So more help doesn't change that. We have responsibilities. And if we're not willing to take on those responsibilities, then maybe we need to think about why we're here. Because I mean, that to me, that comes with being with serving. And we can't just hire someone. I mean, no other board has that kind of support.
All I
You know,
can
other
tell
boards,
you, we didn't have a meeting for almost a year, and I've had a meeting every month since I've been the chairman, and more than a month. So I'm doing more than I feel the previous chair did. And it's hard to have meetings, effective meetings, when you don't have action items and minutes. And that's where I'm coming from. So, and that
sure,
was, and Sunhee knows I'm not happy with that. I want the minutes out within a week after the meeting. I've stated that many times. I haven't seen it. So anyhow, I don't want.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm done. I appreciate everybody's help, and it's hard this time of year just to get people to come to meetings, you know. So.
Sure, and I think it's unfortunate because I think you are bothered and upset by things, and I think instead of talking to us, you're just bottling it all up. And I'm asking you to let us know what's going on, because we can't help if we don't know that there's a problem. And a few of the things you brought up tonight, I had no idea that you were even looking for. And so I think if you maybe somehow expectations didn't get communicated clearly or whatever it is, it's you know, I'm sitting here going, wow, it really feels like you just totally called Sunhee out. And you know, now I'm wondering, going, well, what's your problem with me? What do you think I'm not doing right that you're not telling me? And there are some things, well, I respect the fact that you want things done a certain way. As someone who's taken minutes for 6 years, expecting them done in 7 days, in my opinion, is an unrealistic expectation. We have lives, we're volunteers. It's, you know, it's not.
We did get them out quickly when Jackie and Bill Morris and I did them within 7 days. Jackie does them in 7 days. It's I don't know. Again, it's what it is. And
but that was a different board. So I feel like you're holding this board to a standard of a different board that was different people. And I don't feel that that's fair.
Right. That could be. All right. Well, I'd make a motion to adjourn at 9:20.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Mike Schaefer, yay.
Janice Vegaleros, yay.
Deb Smith, yay.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Our next meeting's the 20th. So.
Everybody, thank you.
Right.